far as Article 2 goes, which is basically what the president has the authority over, there's no explicit language at all saying the president can make acts of war or engage in war and any kind of stuff
He can
like
take
that.
military. It wouldn't say acts of war. That's modern language. That's modern legislation.
So this is what it says.
He's the commander in chief.
Go, Joe.
Yes, it does say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
All right, hold on. I found this is the AI overview. I just Googled Article 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
Makes the president the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy, state militias, granting authority to command forces, direct military operations, and deploy troops. But this is shared with Congress, which declares war, funds the military, and sets the rules. Leading to the ongoing debates, which means we won't solve it tonight, but leading to the ongoing debates over presidential war powers as seen in cases, and it goes over certain court cases.
Yes.
So that's the AI version, real quick.
Which is the quick version. And again, what Trump did is in the powers of the president. We haven't declared war on anyone.
So it's interpreted two ways. Go ahead.
I think the AI definition kind of extended it. That was the extended version. This is the Constitution. This is literally what it says here. Article 2, Section 2, the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States and of the militias of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to duties of their respective offices, and he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. That's it. I mean, it doesn't authorize any acts of offensive military action.
No, you're reading it the wrong way. It doesn't deny. It doesn't deny the president the ability to take action when necessary.
Well, it doesn't deny the president from
that's exactly. It is literally empowering the president. See, they were very smart when they made this. We're very dumb when we make laws now, because we make laws now tailored to an outcome that we want. They're very specific, which is why they fail on a regular basis.
Yeah, after the fact.
The founders thought of this and said, we can't envision every reason that the president might have to use military force. So we will restrict that he cannot declare war, but maybe he has to go after pirates. Thinking from their point of view at that time, maybe he has to go after pirates. Does he need the Congress to go after pirates? No, go after the pirates. If he wants to use cannons or if he wants to take the boats with Marines, that's up to him. But we're not going to restrict him on that. See, that's why the language is so open, because they understood things happen. So we don't want to restrict him and tie him to Congress and basically cut off the balls of our president, the commander-in-chief. Rather, we will allow him to do what is necessary to protect America. And when it comes to the point that we have to take a war stance, well, that would be something that the people, through their Congress, would have to be willing to do. But we're not at war, not with Iran, not with Venezuela. But the president did have the authorization to do a military action per the Constitution and War Powers Act.
Not in the Constitution, no. It needs to be explicit. Like, it needs to have it enumerated. I mean, that's the way the Constitution is written.
No,
so
it's not right there.
The Constitution is a document of limitations on government power when necessary, but very little in the Constitution in terms of rights and powers and execution of things. It's not explicit at all. We don't need that. You're putting modern views of legislation and governments on the document that was created 250 years ago that said, no, we don't need all those restrictions or those limitations. We need the president to be able to be flexible.
I think so.
Okay, so you see the conversation you're having right now?
Yeah.
I wonder if I feel like the founding fathers were brilliant in so many ways. And I wonder if they were purposely vague in doing this to let people decide as the society in America grew. And that's why this argument goes on. Like, they wanted us to have this discussion that you two are having right now, where could that be possible? They were thinking ahead, and that made, like, we don't want to say explicitly because we don't really know everything that's going to happen down the road. So it's best to kind of leave it open to interpretation. And was that something by design? What do you guys think?
I disagree with that, because the entire the Constitution is basically telling the government, this is your power and nothing else. I mean, they wrote the 9th Amendment also, and the 10th Amendment. And the whole Declaration of Independence was against the king, the former king, King George, doing whatever he wanted unilaterally. So they're not going to be like, oh, the president, we're going to be intentionally vague, or you actually have rights that we're not going to actually write in here that you can do whatever you want. That's replacing the president or the king with the president.
No, you're misreading it and misunderstanding it completely. First of all, the Declaration of Independence is a statement of feeling and opinion. It is not a document of law. It never was intended to be. It was meant to state the feeling and the opinion of people in the colonies at that time, why they were rebelling against it. But it's not actually any law in there. Now, going into the Constitution itself, they were clear. We have restrictions that were built in. By the way, we also added things like, hey, a president has to be elected, but there is a limitation on how many times we can elect the president. You know what? The Constitution didn't say that. They never said, oh, we're going to limit how many times you can be president. We wrote that in. Matter of fact, we didn't even write that in. That was a tradition created by Washington. It was never considered. Washington could have stayed as president until the day he died if he had wanted to, but he chose after 2 terms to return back to civilian life. And then all the way up until FDR, who was very abusive of America and abusive of the loopholes in government, it was only until he decided he wanted to go for a 3rd term. That was the only time that we ever had a problem with how long someone serves, because there was no rules on that. So, there's a lot of things that are not explicit in the Constitution because they wanted adaptability and flexibility. What's his name? Jefferson, one of the writers, this is part of why he wrote in the way he did, because he believed in a living Constitution that would be able to adapt to each generation. In fact, he wanted to rewrite the Constitution every generation or so to adapt to the modern needs. But the compromise was we would leave certain things a little bit more open so that people could adjust as they need to. That's why we have a Congress. That's why they make legislation. And that's why in the Bill of Rights, we have the 9th and 10th Amendment to allow the people to always have the ability to say, we disagree. If the entire nation were to speak up as one and demand that Congress take action, we could see an impeachment of President Trump, although there isn't any rule that's been broken. But the people could speak up and we could have action there. But we're not. And if we look at the most recent polls, they don't show that.
So you basically said what I said. You basically said parts of the Constitution are left through interpretation. And my proposition at the beginning of this part of the conversation was that done on purpose? Yeah. It was just for these moments. So you're basically saying that you think it was. This part of the Constitution was definitely done for people to interpret as the country grew.
That's explicitly true. And also the Federalist Papers also make that very clear. It is explicitly, they left certain aspects of government open for that interpretation. And for the interpretation.
Right. Go ahead, Joe.
If the founders, the Declaration of Independence is a divorce letter from the monarchy, from the king. From the unilateral single person, single ruler doing whatever he wants, and having his forces go into the colonies and doing whatever they wanted. There is no way the founders would be like, you know what? Let's leave it open to interpretation for the president to have these acts of war powers. No, thank you.
But we have seen it again. we have seen both in precedent, in legislation, in actions by the Supreme Court. Absolutely, they did. It's not even a question. It is a fact. They did.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the legislation and the courts saying that, because they've been unconstitutional almost since the founding. with so many things, with the executive order 9066 regarding the incarceration of Japanese Americans who were of Japanese descent, the Dred Scott case,
oh God,
there's been lots of mistakes.
So, a lot of mistakes. Yeah, all right.
Happens.
Great conversation, folks. I love this. It's like going to school and hearing both sides. This is fantastic stuff. And if you out there are liking this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, and share. Like,